Sorry, everybody does that. I'm Wendy. I'm Assistant Director for Admissions, been at Duke, PA for 15 years. Duke Med School before that. I'm almost at 30 at Duke now. And I love it, so come see us.
April.
Hello, everybody. I'm April Stouder. I'm a PA and a member of the faculty. I wear a couple of different hats at the program. I'm the associate director, and in that role, I work hand in hand with Wendy to lead the admissions team as the chair of the admissions committee. I also work closely with the STED Society, which is the student society here at our program, and then serve as the disability service liaison with our Office of Disability and Accommodations. Happy to chat with you guys this evening.
Okay, Alicia, you're next.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Alicia Bolden. I am a PA. I've been here at the Duke PA program almost 2 years now. I serve as faculty in the clinical year. I also am the faculty advisor for the new White Coats for Black Lives Duke chapter, and also faculty advisor for our melanated healthcare professionals group.
Awesome. Mariah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mariah Leroux. I'm a second year student here at Duke, and I serve on the STED Society as diversity chair, and I'm also involved in our National PA Society, AAPA, as the president-elect of the Student Academy.
Soljett.
Hello, everybody. My name is Soljett. I'm a first year PA student at Duke, and I am also the diversity chair for my cohort, class of 2022. Hello, everyone.
Minerva will skip over you. And Levis.
Good evening. I'm Levis Alexander. I've been a PA for 43 years, and I've been at Duke for 39 years and on the faculty for 35. I'm Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the program. And it's good that you're having this forum. I'm very excited about this. This is a dream come true. We need more programs like this.
Okay. So thank you all for your introductions. Let's go ahead and start with Wendy. Tell us a little bit about the admissions process at Duke.
Okay, so we believe in looking at a person as a person, not just numbers. We call it our holistic admissions process, and we really do try to look every single thing that a person brings to the table. We're a mission-driven program, and so what we're really interested in is creating caring physician assistants who will practice medicine, be leaders in the profession, and take care of people who need it. And that's really ultimately what we need. We do look at numbers a little bit because, of course, we don't want anyone to come to this school and struggle. So we need you to try to do as well as you can in your science classes. And we do require the GRE, and we need you to do as well as you can in that. But those are just things we try to glide over. If you've done as well as you can do, and we think that you won't struggle, we deeply read your application. So we look at who you are, what your experiences have been. Have you gone through some adversity in your life? Do you seem to really have a fire in the belly to take care of people and want to be a PA? Why do you want to be a PA? Do you have empathy and caring, or do you just kind of talk about things much more on a scientific or a highbrow level and never mention people? We want you to mention people. We want you to like people. We want you to take care of people. And we're looking for caring human beings to do that. So that's what we're looking for in an admissions application. Those things we kind of roll into something we call our match to mission. And that's what's chief first and foremost about how we look at every application. So that being said, essays, big time important because you're going to tell us your story. And then recommendations so that other people can tell us how indeed you have acted with people and taking care of people. So we kind of know that you walk the walk that you're talking about. So that's in a nutshell kind of how we handle the admissions process. And we're trying to grow it all along to make it more and more holistic along the way.
And like you said, Wendy, I know there's probably going to be specific questions regarding the holistic. So you guys drop those as they come. We have a couple in advance that we'll ask. But let's keep on with the admissions and let's talk a little bit about what are, some of the stats. I know you guys don't have a list of GPA, but talk about the applicants you've received, number of applicants, what their GPAs look like, don't look like. And I'll pass that to you, Rhiannon.
Hey there. Okay. So first off, we usually get around 2,000 supplemental applications, not just CASPAs, but completed supplemental applications. And of those, we have a fairly big class of 90. And then, let's see, as far as stats of interviews, we interview about 250 candidates to get that class of 90. So if you get an interview, your chances are definitely not bad. On our website, we have the middle 50% listed. I'll go over them quickly, but it's you're gonna get more from it if you go check it out on the website later. But the middle 50% for the 2020 accepted applicants, the overall GPA was between a 3.5 and a 3.8. Natural science GPA was between a 3.4 to 3.8. Natural science hours were between 64 and 89. GRE test scores, verbal 154 to 161, quant 152 to 158, analytical 4.5 to 5, and hours of full-time patient experience 2,700 to 6,700, that tends to skew a little bit high. I generally say around 2,000 is where things get more competitive. But we absolutely look at this holistically, like Wendy said, and we absolutely have people who come into the program with the minimum patient care hours if they have an otherwise compelling application. And one thing I'll say to anybody who's still in college is that if you feel like you don't have the patient care experience you need, taking a gap year is fine for us. We appreciate the reasons for that, and it's totally fine. If you're ready to apply straight out of college, great, do it. But if not, and if you don't get in your first time around, we love reapplicants. Many people get in their second or third time, sometimes their second time interviewing. Just try to change something in the years in between, and that's where patient care can really make a difference. If you can keep racking up patient care in the intervening year, that can make a big difference. And let's see, we don't have any minimums, so we don't have a minimum for the GPA or the GRE. And I usually say with the GRE, you want to be over 300 combined if possible. It's a little bit more of an uphill battle if you're not. But again, holistically, people do come in with less. And as far as some important dates, CASPA, the Central Application Service, opens in mid-April. Our patient care deadline is July 1st. And then the CASPA deadline is September 1st. GRE deadline, you have to sit for the GRE by September 15th. And our supplemental application, which is the last deadline, is October 1st. And if Wendy or anybody sees anything I'm missing, feel free to let me know, but I think that's about it.
I'm glad you mentioned reapplicants because I know we had a couple of questions come in for people that have either applied a couple of times to Duke and or received interviews. I have another poll here just to kind of find out who is there as a reapplicant. But does anyone want to give any specific tips to applicants that are reapplying? Applicants who are reapplying and didn't get an interview invite, and then those who did get an interview invite, if you can talk about that. I'll leave that up to whoever wants to mention that. I know that wasn't in our schedule.
I can talk about that. First, I want to say we 100% welcome reapplicants, and we are always available to answer questions if you were not successful in your initial application, either applied, did not get an interview, or came and interviewed and were not successful. We are happy to provide some feedback. And in fact, we do that regularly. So feel free to reach out to us and get some feedback and some guidance on what we're seeing. Because there's a lot of folks who maybe just didn't quite make it to interview or just didn't quite make it into the reading pool. And so with some minor tweaks, the next cycle around, they can absolutely be successful and make it all the way. So I think we are very open to providing feedback. I know that some programs don't provide any feedback, but that's not really been our philosophy. And we get a lot of reapplicants every year, and we're excited to see reapplicants. I will say that for me as a reader and as an interviewer, some of the things that I look for when I see that somebody's a reapplicant and I'm looking at their file, I want to see that they've used that year wisely, that they've grown, that they've got more patient care experience, maybe more exposure to the profession, done some shadowing. And I would love to see in their essays that they talk about how they use that year as a growth opportunity to become a more competitive applicant. What did they learn about themselves? So it's okay to actually talk about your disappointment that you didn't get into a PA program, and then how that drove you to be a more competitive applicant. What are the things that you did? So don't recycle the same essay, don't turn in essentially the exact same application. You really want to work to improve it. More patient care is a really big thing. If you need to increase some of your natural science hours, or maybe retake a course and try for a better grade, we love to see that you're continuing to learn. Maybe you got feedback that your GRE scores were the weakest component of your application, and so an attempt to retake your GREs and get a better score. All of those things are looked at really favorably. And I would just say that we accept every year people who are reapplicants, sometimes people who have done 2, 3, 4 application cycles, and they nearly have given up hope, and then applied to our program. And on that 5th cycle, by golly, they're sitting in our class. So we always frame things positively when we give feedback, and we think that there's always reason to be hopeful in a reapplication.
Awesome. I remember, I think in 2014 or 15, I did actually apply to the Duke program. I was not prepared at that time, but I do remember getting a very nice detailed email from Wendy, actually. Check your archives, I was in there. But I just want to know, is you said like reapplicants can reach out. Do they email someone in particular, or just the general inquiry email? Go ahead, Wendy.
I take those emails directly because I do most of them. Rhiannon helps as well. Either one of us will take direct emails. We also have a PA inbox as well that is on our website and on CASPA and all. If people email that box, it's also forwarded to us. But basically what I do, or what Rhiannon does, is we will sit and I will dig through your application and I will try to find the fine points that kept you out. And then I will tell you what you need to work on to try to get you in.
Awesome, good to know. So April, you talked to us a little bit about what reapplicants need to do, but talk to us about some of the other components about testing, patient care hours, shadowing, the like, those other things.
So we do have a minimum for patient care hours, as Rhiannon said, a minimum of 1,000 hours. However, if you just have the bare minimum of patient care, it is really worth it to potentially wait and reapply the next cycle, because you want to make sure that you submit the strongest application that you possibly can. And I know that people are excited to apply to PA school and get into PA school and start their PA school journey. But it may mean that you need to wait, get more patient care, take some more classes, retake the GRE so that you are submitting the absolute strongest application that you can. So just keep that in mind. We absolutely have people in the class who have close to the bare minimum patient care hours, but I would say that our more typical average of patient care hours is around 18 months, somewhere between 12 and 18 months. It varies from cohort to cohort. So make sure, keep that in mind. For patient care, we'd love to see really hands-on patient care opportunities. So particularly, it's impressive when somebody has a patient care role where maybe they'd had to get some additional education or certification, whether that's an EMT, a paramedic, respiratory therapist, nursing, CNA, MA, any of those roles that really have you interfacing very directly with patients in a hands-on way. I think we also love to see people who in their patient care work have been exposed to PAs or at least APPs, PAs and NPs, and have a good understanding of what that role looks like in action. We don't require shadowing. Shadowing is always encouraged, mostly because we really want you to know what you're getting into when you're applying to PA school and choosing this as your profession. We want you to have seen PAs in action. But again, shadowing is not a requirement, and you're not going to be dinged if you don't have shadowing, particularly after a year like 2020 where COVID came and so many people were not able to shadow. So don't sweat if you're not able to do it, but it's lovely if you've had some exposure to PAs, and then we can see evidence of that somewhere in your application. Let's see, we do have some specific coursework in terms of requirements. That's all outlined on our website. I won't go into the nitty-gritty details in terms of our requirements because I think they're fairly similar to a number of the PA programs out there. We do have some flexibility in terms of the courses that you choose to fulfill those prereqs. And every year we field a lot of questions about whether certain courses would fulfill our anatomy requirement or a physiology requirement. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us on our general PA admissions email link on our website. And we answer those kind of questions all the time. And we're always happy to help you figure that out. We've mentioned before that we don't have hard cutoffs for GPA or GRE. We get a lot of questions too about, well, what do I do if maybe I don't have what I feel like is a competitive GPA, but I've taken a lot of classes, I've retaken them, I've shown that I can do better. We actually look at that level of detail on the application. And so I'm not, as a reader, going to judge someone just based off of a GPA. I want to see evidence that they have continued to take upper level science classes and that they've been successful. Some people choose to do a post-bac program where they're just taking a whole lot of upper level science courses. That's not a requirement, but certainly if you can be successful in a rigorous program like that, that tells me as a reader and an interviewer that you have the chops to be successful in PA school. But I love to look for upward trends. I think there's a lot of people out there who maybe don't have a great freshman year because they're acclimating to college and maybe didn't have a lot of guidance when they went to college. And I think it's okay to talk about that in your essay. It's part of your life experience. Talk to us about your journey and what you've gone through from the start all the way up to where you are now. I love reading those kind of essays and getting a sense of someone's life story and the journey and the obstacles that they've had to overcome to get where they are. It really tells me who they are as a person, and it shows me that they've got grit and resiliency and perseverance in achieving their goals. So I really think that we're digging deep in these applications and we're looking for those trends. We're looking to see that people have tried to improve themselves over time. And we're not judging anyone based on any singular number. We're really looking at that whole picture of someone's journey.
Awesome. That was really, really great advice. That's something that I definitely utilize as someone who didn't do that great and really chose to write about in my story and hope that someone listened to my sob story. But I loved everything that you said. And so I saw a couple more questions come in as you were talking, April. Just letting everyone know I do see that, but I want to get through. Lovis and Alicia both have some great things to talk about diversity. So before we transition to the PA students, I'll address the questions that are coming in. But Love it. So, the PAC, we're about increasing diversity in the PA profession. You've had several years in the game of doing exactly just that. So talk to us about Duke's mission and push, or a little bit about what you do, I guess.
Very good. And thanks for having me. Duke has always embraced diversity. A lot of people don't think so because they know it's a predominantly white school and it's private school. But they sometimes are surprised when they get an interview to see how diverse we are. And as far as our staff, faculty, we embrace diversity. And you would have to think, you have to go back from the beginning. Joyce Nichols was the first woman in the program in the PA profession, and she was Black. Prentice Harrison Joyce was in the third class, Prentice was in the second class, and he was the first African American to get into the profession. So Duke has always embraced diversity. Diversity is a very broad thing, and it's not only just ethnicity, but it embraces, gender, it embraces sexual orientation, it embraces disability. And I always tell individuals when I go out and recruit that I always would like to see when I come into the classroom that the class looks like the UN. And that's what we strive to do, is that we strive to have a diverse group of cohorts in our class each year. I have been fortunate enough to be on this journey I was hired to do this 35 years ago, and I went out to various HBCU schools. I've recruited at every HBCU school in North Carolina, most of them in Virginia, and some in South Carolina, and also in Maryland. So I have been around. Also, I found out that there's a misnomer about Duke, in that they think that we don't care for diversity and we are not getting diverse students into our cohort, but we are. And since I came on 35 years ago, the class has been 25% or more diverse. And half of the class sometimes is really underrepresented individuals, whether they're academically or educationally diverse. So that is something that we embrace every day, and that a lot of people don't know that.
Thanks so much for that. Alicia, I'll let you talk about, add on to the diversity. And then you had mentioned in your intro 2 of the programs that you lead up at Duke. If you want to tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, thank you. And one, I want to say, Lovis Alexander is a trailblazer here at Duke in the world of diversity and inclusion, and probably beyond in all PA programs. So thank you, Lovis. But I just want to mention briefly sort of the Duke PA program response to the racial injustice movement that was apparent after George Floyd. And I worked very closely with our diversity chair, Mariah, over the last few months. And I will say, under the leadership of our program director, Dr. Jackie Barnett, our PA program had a very swift response to being vocal against anti-racism and anti-racism efforts. And there was a lot of ways we did it. We held town halls. I know our student cohorts created a statement against racism and announcing that it's a public health issue. We also created, I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at our video series where our PA students spoke personally about their experience and racial injustices We also created curricular changes, and we have adopted and modified courses to model a course in our School of Medicine that talks about cultural determinants of health, social determinants of health, race, racism, gender, sexual disparities, disabilities, and how all of that can impact health outcomes. Our PA program partnered with our School of Medicine and our medical students and created the inaugural White Coats for Black Lives chapter last semester. And that group is very vocal and at the front of protests and Breonna Taylor walks, and a lot of sessions on knowing your rights and dealing with microaggressions, and is at the forefront of the conversation and holding the institutions and the program accountable for what we're saying. And so I know I want to make sure that Mariah and Soljett, as our diversity chairs, talk about their experiences also as students and some of the things that they have headed. Soljett has an amazing diversity newsletter that she sends out to the class and to the faculty. But I just wanted you all to know some of the things that we're doing here to fight anti-racism efforts.
Awesome. So one thing I want to get into before we get to some of the questions is, so I think when we all met behind the scenes, you guys wanted to you guys wanted to convey a certain message about Duke to our viewers in terms of, you know, Duke is one of the top programs, and that kind of works against it, but against you sometimes, as you were sharing with me. But what is it that you want those watching to know about your program in terms of applying? Let's see, April, do you want to touch base on that?
Sure, I'd love to. You know, I think we hear every single year from either students who matriculate and come to the program, or when students come and interview, we hear a lot, I almost didn't apply to Duke. Duke was my reach school. I didn't think it was even possible that Duke was, you know, in the realm of feasibility for me. And then here I am, I'm a student. And so, you know, we sit with that and we think, okay, how can we get the message out that Duke is attainable for really a wide variety of people? And I do think that sometimes our name, being a really the first program, being around for so long, being a highly ranked program, I think that puts it in people's minds that there's just no way I can do it. And so the message that we want is, we want to see your application. So really take a strong look at our program mission, take a strong look at what we value, take a really strong look at our social media, that's particularly Instagram, that's run by our students, our Facebook page, our website. And if you feel some alignment with what we're putting out there and what we're all about, we want to see your application. Don't let a number stop you from putting an application in. We're really looking for people who are a strong match to our program's mission. That means a lot to us. So I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by the Duke name or the Duke history, because we really mean it when we say that we want to see a diverse cohort. We want to respond to the needs of the community, and that means that we need to help diversify the profession. And we mean business when we really put the pedal to the metal, or put the money where our mouth is. And we look at our holistic process every year to say, what other barriers can we take down? What are some things that we're seeing? So I guess that's the message is, we are attainable, and don't let the Duke name intimidate you.
And I know when we switch over to the PA student panel, Soljett, it'd be awesome if you share a little bit of your experience with applying. But Lovis, just throwing you in for really quick, but you know, when these applicants do come in, the ones that don't think that they are capable, or what is it that you look for as part of the admissions and trying to really make sure that we get diverse applicants in?
I look at a holistic approach to the applicants, and I really pay a close attention to in underrepresented minorities and diversity, disadvantaged students. And I really look at, it's an intense program. And I look at the grit of, do they have the grit and the tenacity to do the program? That's very important in our program. And it's very important in our profession. You don't want someone who does not have that, the tenacity and grit in order to endure the program. I went through the program, and the program has changed. When I went through, there were 40 people, but now we have 90. That's a lot of people to educate. And you're talking about, actually in 2 classes, you're talking about 180 people. And so that's some medical schools are not that large, so, it's, we have a pretty large faculty and staff, but it's intense, and the students will tell you, and I always tell applicants, it's probably going to be the most intense or the most intense thing that you have accomplished or will accomplish in your lifetime, because it's like, drinking water out of a fire hose, and, things move very fast, and you have to have the grit and the tenacity in order to do it. We don't want to have anyone who comes into the profession, and we are very mindful of this. Anybody who comes through the door and gets in the class is going to graduate. We believe in that. We don't believe in failure. They're going to graduate. You hear what I say? And you can look at our stats about that. Our people who come through that door, they're going to graduate. We're not going to get you in and flunk you out. We don't believe in that, because anybody we take in, they're capable of graduating and passing their boards. So that's important in order to be a PA, so I look for things of that nature, and I look for things that the intangibles, things that you cannot see in applicants. But a lot of applicants that we see, they might not have all of the GPA or the GREs, but they have other things, intangibles, that will show us that they are able to proceed and able to be successful in the program.
That's a really strong statement. And I don't know, coming from you, I really believe it. If we go to,
I was also going to say some more. I think just to reiterate April's point, I think for a lot of us, we think Duke is a program that's not attainable. But just the fact that you guys are here today on this platform is a testament to the fact that you're not just talking the talk, but you're actually walking the walk, and you believe in the mission, and you believe in outreach and reaching the people who really want to get into those underserved communities and do the hard work. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome. So Rhiannon, I see you've been busy answering questions for us. Thank you so much. But I'm gonna stop saying it now, and let's get to some of these questions. So let me see how I can. So one question we got is if there is feedback given for people that do not get accepted the first time. I think we addressed this already, but Wendy, I'll let you go over that again if you want, just in case this person had joined late.
Sure. If you need feedback, I or Rhiannon are very happy to provide it. You can email the direct PA admissions web box. It will get to us, and we'll dig through your application and give you some pointers on what we think you could do to make a stronger applicant.
Okay. Rhiannon, there was one question you wanted to answer live. If I'm correct, it says, is it frowned upon for college seniors to apply?
I accidentally hit the answer live, but I can answer it live. It's not at all, but taking a gap year is not a bad thing either. It just kind of depends on what the rest of your application looks like. We know that especially patient care can be hard to get while you're also in school.
All right, going in order here, guys, but April, I'll field this one to you. Is shadowing required? I know you touched on that a little bit, but even though I know you said it isn't required, how do you, I guess, weigh that? I'll add on to that question. Two applicants, pretty much the same. One has shadowing, one maybe has 10 hours, the other has 50. Is it that simple, or?
So shadowing in and of itself doesn't really factor into any of the scoring or the weighing of applications. But we do want to get some sense from an applicant that they know about the profession. And so whether that means they worked with PAs, they shadowed PAs, they had PAs as their personal healthcare providers. We just want to get a sense that if you're applying to PA programs, that you actually know about the profession and you know what you're getting into, and you have a good sense of sort of the role and responsibilities of a PA. And you don't have to shadow to get that. There's other ways to get at that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead, please.
One thing I can say is that I get a fair amount of individuals who contact me directly who want to talk about their application. And I do a fair amount of that myself. And when we were before COVID, I would bring them in one-on-one and we would sit down and we'd talk. And I'll spend an hour or so with them, talk about their application. So not only Wendy and Rhiannon doing that, but we are doing that. I'm doing that also. I do a lot of that, and been doing it for a lot of time, many years. So people sometimes will contact me directly.
Okay. Next question is, if your performance in undergrad wasn't too great, would you recommend schooling beyond post-bac, like getting a master's, or would I still have a strong chance of admission if I strengthened other areas of my application? Rhiannon, maybe if you want to take that one, or Wendy.
I can take it. So if your performance in undergrad wasn't great, one thing you're going to want to look at is how you trended overall. If you started out lower, but along the way your grades got a lot better, we're going to look at that. A lot of people struggled their first year in college, and we know that. So we're going to look at that. But if you feel like your grades were, considerably lower than our middle 50% throughout undergrad, or your GPA is particularly low, then by all means take some extra classes. You don't necessarily have to get a separate master's degree. You can. It's not, that's one way to get it. But you could also go take some natural science hour credits and bulk up your natural science credit hours and your natural science GPA. And part of it's going to depend how many credit hours you have overall. If you have a huge amount of credit hours overall, it's going to be harder to pull it up because one great class is going to be a drop in the bucket. But if you think that will pull it up, then by all means.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. That was asked anonymously. Someone else asked, what if you have more HCE than PCE? Let's give that one to April.
So at our program, we don't necessarily differentiate between HCE and PCE. We just want you to have hands-on patient care experiences. And that can be in a really wide variety of roles. In our FAQ on our website, we do have some information about the types of roles that we accept. And I think that we accept some roles that other programs don't, such as scribing or clinical research coordinators. If you have any question at all about whether your patient care experience, whether we will count it towards your 1,000 hours, by all means reach out, but just know that we're looking for those real hands-on, interactive with patient type of experiences. And we're pretty flexible about what that looks like. We even accept things like someone who's a social worker, if they did counseling with patients and education, health coaches, those types of things. So I do think that we're maybe more flexible with our patient care hours than other programs. And so it never hurts to reach out and just verify with us and make sure, hey, should I continue to work another year in this role? Will you accept it? Or would it be better if I got something different that was more hands-on in this next year? We get questions like that all the time, and we're happy to help answer and guide you.
I'm going to take a couple more before I switch over to the PA students, and then there'll be more time at the end to address all the other questions we didn't get to. But someone asked, and I apologize, I don't remember the answer, but how many patient care hours are required that would make an applicant competitive? Wendy, would you like to touch on that?
Sure. So again, the patient care or healthcare, whatever you're doing when you're taking care of patients and you're really, really hands-on, the minimum is 1,000 hours. But we typically see people with about 18 months, about 2,000 hours to be very competitive. But again, that's just one piece. If you have an amazing story, and you have 1,000 hours, that's going to probably get you an interview, and then you're going to come in and be a part of the cohort. It all depends. Your application is special, and it's unlike any other person's application. And so when we look at every single piece, if you only have a minimum amount and you have other strengths, you're good. If you have a huge amount and you have other weaknesses, you might not be so good. Just depends on you. It's your story.
Awesome. And one more question I want to ask before I turn over to Soljett and Mariah. Lovis, I'll ask you this one. Joanna wanted to know, what does your remediation process look like if a student isn't doing well in the program? I know you made that statement before that everyone gets through, but how do you treat students that are stumbling a little bit?
Well, the program is set up so that all of the students are assigned advisors. They have an advisor, and we break the class up. And so the advisors are really on top of their students, the advisees. So they keep a close contact with the advisees of how they are really going through the program. We also have individuals on our faculty. One is in assessment and one is in education, who will sit down with these individuals and see how they learn. And we have that capability. We have a lot of resources at Duke for individuals to, if they are getting into some type of difficulties in their studies, to talk to. So they are not out there. You know, we have the resources for our students, and so the advisor are really on top of the advisees at all times.
Okay, so we are going to take a pause on questions, although the faculty feel more than free to answer via text to the ones we didn't get to. You guys keep the questions coming, but I really, really, really want you to hear from Soljett and Mariah about their experience. I know a couple of questions came in about, you know, how the students feel specifically. So I'm going to turn it over to Soljett first for her to tell us a little bit about herself and how she came to apply to Duke, and how's it going as a year didactic one PA student.
All right, thank you. So hello again, everyone. Soljett. So didactic year student or first year student here. How I came to apply for PA school. Well, I was actually at a career fair working at my job, recruiting people for Scribe America, for Scribes, when I ran across Mr. Lovis Alexander at the Duke PA table. And I actually spoke to him about it, and I gave him my whole stats. I was like, you know, this is my GRE, the recent one. This is what I've done so far. And he actually looked it over in real time. So he is telling the truth. He will definitely look over everything. He looked over it in real time. And honestly, I kept that paper for a while too. When he wrote down, he was like, this is what you need to do. You got to do this, and you can take this again and get this a little bit better. And I was like, okay, cool. And I actually kept in touch with him and I updated him along the way on my journey. And I applied and I let him know, I was like, hey, I have an interview. A little nervous. Can I like come see the building and things? So he was very, very, very hands-on with helping. He is absolutely telling the truth. He will help with that. So that's how I came to apply to Duke. It was, I will say, one of my quote unquote reach schools because, you know, their history and, you know, what Duke stands for, it actually precedes itself. So, you know, a little nervous when I did apply, not going to lie, but I still applied nonetheless. So don't let that get to you. Still apply to it. As well as my experience through didactic year. I'm absolutely truthful that it is a rigorous program. It is. And it's something to where you will learn overnight very quickly. How to change your studying ways to improve to the PA level. Mind you, I came from a recent master's graduate program and I was like, I got it, PA school, whatever. I did research. No, it's different. So I will say that. And I would say as far as like support, because I know there's some questions coming in as far as like, is there support for students or like tutoring? They do offer that for students. I'm sure the faculty could speak more on that, but they do offer support for students throughout the year. My advisor here is here, Alicia. She is my advisor. So very, very, very supportive. She can speak to that. Very supportive through all of your moments that you're gonna have throughout PA school. And if there's anything that you do need, they do have a specialized team that can actually help you with your study habits. So if you find that, you know, you didn't do so hot on a test, then you can talk to your advisor, you can talk to that team, and they can help you to see, okay, what do you need to change? As well as this faculty just in general are very helpful. I had a weak spot with physiology. That was my weak spot in fall time. And so I actually set up a meeting with the teacher. We met over Zoom and we went through my test and they actually helped me like, okay, so what are you doing and how can we fix it? So they really are hands-on. They're not gonna let you flunk out. They really do mean that, speaking from experience, they really do mean that. So that's just been my experience thus far as a didactic year student.
Mariah, before I turn over to you, Alicia, since Soljett outed you as her advisor, and you seem so happy to serve in that capacity, tell us a little bit, how does that work? Is it informal? Can she reach out to you anytime? Yeah, what does that look like?
Oh yeah, Soljett reaches out all the time. No, I'm just playing. But so it's both formal and informal. As faculty, we are directed by our preclinical director to have set semester check-ins, whether you are doing well or having difficulties, we're checking in. On the back end, faculty is always aware of your grades, your performance in lab. Oftentimes if we see, not even, we don't usually wait until someone has failed an exam, but if we see that someone is struggling or having difficulty, we reach out. We talk about it, we direct students into different resources that we have to help. And so like Lovett said, we are really hands-on for the fun moments, the good moments. There have been a lot of emails where I sent to students and say, you rock, this is amazing, great job. So it's not a punitive relationship. It really truly is, you know, we're here to succeed. When we say, shake your hand and say, welcome to the program, we know in 24 months, we're going to shake your hand and say, welcome to the profession colleague. And so it really truly is. And I will say Duke is one of the institutions that we do have resources. We have a large faculty, so we have a lot of folks that are available to provide support at every angle of the way. So, and thank you, Soljett. I didn't pay her to say any of that.
Now everyone's going to request you. Okay, so Mariah, PAS2, and someone I always say I'm very proud of for all the great things you're doing, but go ahead and tell us about, you know, your aspect as a clinical year student or anything else you want to share.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me, first of all, and thank you some more because you were definitely very helpful for my PA school journey getting here. So yeah, so basically, my story is a long one, but I'll try to abbreviate it. Essentially, I didn't know I wanted to be a PA until after I graduated from undergrad. My original plan was medical school. I didn't know about PA school or any other options. And so I had also struggled a lot in undergrad. I graduated with a pretty low GPA, both in the sciences and overall. And, I applied to med school, didn't get in, found out about the PA profession. I was like, oh, this is actually what I want to do. This is a much better fit for me in my life. So started researching that. I became certified as a medical assistant to get my patient care hours, and just started taking post-bac classes to try to bring up my GPA. A lot of those classes were taken at undergrad institutions. And so because I had already graduated, they weren't super helpful. So I made the decision to do a graduate program, a certificate program at a graduate school so that I could get graduate level science experience. And that's definitely not a decision for everyone, but it worked out for me because I really felt like it strengthened me as a student and really showed our admissions committee here that I was capable of handling the rigorous curriculum of the PA program. So that was a good choice for me. And throughout that, I worked on getting volunteer hours and shadowing and things like that. I actually applied to PA school a total of 4 times before I got in. And so I say that for anyone out there who is feeling discouraged, who has applied before and worry about whether or not you can get in, you can do it. If you're passionate about it, if you put in the work, it's absolutely possible. For a little bit of transparency, my PA was lower than a 3.0. So, and I'm here. So it's definitely possible. If you are willing to put in the work and to show that grit, like Mr. Alexander was talking about earlier. So that's how I got here. I applied to Duke twice. I wasn't invited for the interview the first time, but the second time I was, and was eventually accepted. And it was definitely a reach school for me too. I almost didn't apply actually, which is crazy to think now. But I applied and got in, thankfully. It was very excited and honored to accept that offer. So since then, I could definitely attest to the fact that this is a extremely rigorous program. This has been one of the most challenging times of my entire life, not just because of PA school, but life continues when you're in PA school. There are things that happen outside of that, and it's a work in progress, learning how to balance those things and learning how to prioritize things and compartmentalize things, and really just learning how to take care of yourself. That's something that I've learned a lot since I've been here. Still working on it. But yeah, didactic year was definitely challenging. I was not always perfect in all of my grades either. I'll be transparent in that as well. So I definitely utilize a lot of the resources that we have here. I worked with one of our, can't remember his exact title, but I worked with one of our faculty members here who coaches people on like study techniques and like coming up with plans for studying and discovering different ways that maybe would work best for you. I've met with another person who helped me kind of come up with a study plan for clinical year, studying for end of rotation exams. So those resources are definitely here, they're available, and they're super helpful. I would not be here still without them. So I'm really grateful for that. Let's see, I did want to answer one of the questions someone asked about my experience in clinical rotations. And I do have to say, this year has also been challenging in a lot of different ways than didactic year, but overall, it really has been a great experience. Obviously things are a bit different with COVID, but we're still getting that in-person experience. We're taking all the precautions, but we're getting that in-person experience and working with patients. And, I think one of the main memorable things for me is just like I'm halfway through the second year. So the main thing for me has just been things are finally clicking. Like I'm seeing patients, I'm seeing, these disease processes that you study about, and, just seeing those things in person, understanding them, and having that light bulb moment of like, oh, I learned about this and now I'm seeing it and now it makes sense. So I'll say that's definitely one of my favorite parts of the clinical year.
Mariah, thank you so much. I know you were talking and you couldn't see the chat, but your transparency, it's so important to hear that not everyone is a perfect so-and-so this many hours, because you have applied to Duke twice, and we do have more than a couple reapplicants watching. Is there any tips in particular you want to give from reapplying or in general, as the application cycle is coming up? And then we'll get a tip from Soljett as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely echo what was said earlier about making sure that you update things like your personal statement and your experiences from application to application. That was something that I did each time that I applied. And really just, I think the most important thing is to be very, very honest with yourself. Sit down, look at each component of your application. How many hours of experience do I have? What's my science GPA? What's my overall GPA? How does it match up to what the school is looking for? And then your personal statements, your supplemental applications, have people read over those for you, multiple people. That is really, really helpful to get feedback from other people. And it can be other PAs, it could be PAs, it could be, doctors if you're working with them. It can even be just family or friends. I had several people read mine, and I had many drafts before I got to the final one. So definitely encourage that. Yeah, it's just being very honest with yourself, evaluating yourself against what has been accepted in the program previously. And, just making sure that you're improving each component of your application as much as possible in between applications.
Mariah, if you don't mind dropping the best contact for you, whether that's social media or email, in the chat. You were breaking up just a little bit, and I want to make sure everyone hears all the good things you have. So if they did want to reach out, she'll drop that in the chat. So yeah, what about you? What tips would you give those people who are gearing up to apply to Duke this cycle?
All right. So, sorry, I was answering a Q&A question. So the tips that I would give, and thank you, Mariah, for your transparency. I always forget about that to make sure to share the journey, but thank you for that. Truly, truly great journey. So the tips that I would give would be just to echo what Mariah has said, to work on those experiences. So myself, I took a gap year between my master's program and PA school. And I actually started in my master's program, but I actually worked a couple of jobs at once. Don't recommend, don't do it if you don't have to make sure I had my actual experience that I needed. So I worked as a scribe, as a chief scribe, managing other scribes. I worked on an ambulance truck as an EMT, and I worked as a professor at a college for anatomy and physiology students, for licensed or LPN students. So I did a bunch at once to make sure to boost my resume and to boost my application, because I wanted it to be, this is a dream that I had to go into the medical field. And I was like, okay, so yeah, if you're gonna do this, let's just get this over with now. Again, do not recommend. Take your time with that, okay? It was not worth the long nights. It's worth it now in the end, but I suffered a little bit that year. So that is what I would say. Boost that. Have people to look over your letters of recommendation. I had, not letters of recommendation, your personal statement. I had my professor from graduate school to look over it. I had family members look over it. They probably got tired of how many times I sent it. I pretty much had everyone who would answer my email and read it they read it and they would edit my personal statement. And it's just so that way, it looks good. You want to make sure that your message is concise, but that you come across clear. And what do you want to convey? Because they're looking at stats that you put on CASPA, right? They're just looking at, oh, this person had a 3-point-something GPA. Okay, they got this, or they had to withdraw from this class. Me. They got a D in a class. Me. Okay, so they're just looking at that. So how can you boost it, right? How can you boost yourself within that personal statement to look better and to say, hey, I might have gotten, so for undergrad, I had a 3.1. I might have gotten a 3.1 because freshman year wasn't too hot for me. But hey, look at me now. This is what I've done in the meantime. And then as well as any like shadowing. I know there's a bunch of shadowing experiences going on. I think you guys might have posted some about those as well. And other organizations are posting about shadowing experiences. Get in with those. Join those Zooms that they are having, and then connect with those PAs to see how can this, further continue from here, just to make sure that you are helping out as much as you can. So those are my little tidbits of advice. And of course, education comes first. Make sure that you are doing good in those courses. And if you're not, don't be afraid to reach out for help for those courses. Yeah.
Awesome. All good things. So yeah, I'll have you drop your best contact for you as well. I will, even though Minerva is not a student anymore and didn't attend Duke, just because we know application cycle is gearing up, I'll let her give you some tips as well. And then we'll get to the remaining questions.
Hey guys, it's Minerva. So I think my tip for applicants is find what your story is, what makes you unique, what's going to set you apart from the crowd, right? Pretty much everybody who's applying to PA school meets some metric, right, in terms of numbers. But when it comes to separating yourself from the pack, how are you going to, what makes you distinctive, what makes you memorable? And draw on your life experiences. Have you traveled? Have you lived in other places? Have you had unique healthcare experiences? Have you worked in medically underserved communities? A lot of times people do things that you don't even think about it as things that are unique, but you can make a list. I think like starting out and making a list of the things that you think make you unique, make you a great applicant is really helpful to be able to set yourself apart from the competition.
Yeah. And then I just want to chime in to Mariah's point as someone who also had to apply multiple times. To those watching, it can be very discouraging. This is why we like doing things like what we're doing tonight, so that you hear a program saying, hey, we know people mess up, but show us how you're better, or show us why we want to meet you. I definitely did all of those things. I made sure that my essay told my story even before. I don't know how it works if they look at GPA first, but I made sure you knew about who I was in spite of that, and how I worked hard to overcome that within the time frame that I did. I worked multiple jobs like Soljett, and so it's going to take sacrifice if you're someone that isn't high up there on GPA, but there are programs that do have holistic admissions. You do have something of value, but you also have to do your part and work hard. The great tips that these ladies shared here will help. Really making sure you build those connections to have excellent LORs. The more people singing your praises, the better. I'll drop in the chat some ways you can reach us, Minerva and I, if you want to ask more, but let's get to, in our last 15 minutes, let's get to the rest of the questions. But I just really want people to hear, especially from all the people on this panel, Minerva and I included, are non-traditional students, and we've all, us two are PACs now and did well in PA school. These two, I'm sure, will do well, if that's what Lovis said. Everyone that starts there finishes. So I really want to encourage those people to seek out programs like Duke, and don't be discouraged. Denials do happen just because there's so many people applying. Minerva, go ahead.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that there's something to be said for someone who has gone through trials and tribulations, right? We all know those people who, like, they're 4.0 students and they smooth sailing and they get into PA school. And then they get into PA school and they're like, oh my God, I can't handle this, because they've really not had to deal with a lot of adversity. But for people who have struggled, if it's academically and you've been able to like pick yourself up, like come up with a plan, and that's really what PA school is going to be about. Like, it's not going to be smooth sailing, but you have to be able to go back to the drawing board and re-strategize and pivot. And so if you do have struggles academically, don't look at it as, you know, a deal breaker. Look at it as an opportunity to pivot and really prove yourself. Like Samora said, I was a non-traditional student. I went into PA school like in my late 30s. I had 3 kids. And there were days where I was like, what am I doing here? Why am I even applying to PA school? But once I got in there, I realized that like a lot of that life experience and tenacity and grit, like Lovis was saying, like those are the things that are gonna get you through. There's a saying that I heard a few weeks ago, and it said there are show horses and there are work horses. And in PA school, a workhorse is gonna be a show horse any day. So just keep that in mind.
Love that quote. So we will wrap up with the remaining questions. I will, since Soljett, Mariah, and Minerva gave such great advice, I will answer this one, which says, what advice would you go back and give yourself as a pre-PA student? Honestly, I don't know if you all agree, but the best thing for me, the reason I had to apply so many times, I applied 3 times, but the first time I definitely wasn't prepared. I hadn't done my research. I didn't, you know, I assumed because I graduated with a 3, I was academically dismissed, but when I went back to school, I assumed because that GPA was higher, that would be the GPA CASPA calculated. Even if it's not GPA, make sure you are meeting the program's courses, make sure you ask questions if you don't know. The advice to me, I could have saved myself thousands of dollars if I had just been prepared and knew the schools that I was applying to. Everyone's shaking their heads, so I guess they'd agree. One question is by Jalicia, with pharmacy technicians now being able to immunize, will it be considered PCE if we have that certification and actually administer vaccinations? Thought that was a really great question. Who would like to answer that? You guys can just raise your hand since I could.
Oh, that is a great question. So I will say that typically we don't accept outpatient pharmacy tech as patient care experience. However, if the roles are evolving because of COVID and there are more hands-on patient care roles, that should absolutely be included in the description of your job responsibilities. And it's possible that you would get partial credit. So it's very common that people have administrative responsibilities and maybe only half of their responsibilities involve patients. We see that a lot with like clinical research coordinators, where they're doing database stuff and then they're consenting patients, drawing blood, things like that. So we definitely look at those description of jobs, and sometimes we're able to give partial credit to people for some of those hands-on responsibilities.
Awesome. And next one I got, I think it looks like a great one for Alicia. Oh, what is the spark of Duke that allows future PAs to excel in the profession? What do your students leave with that makes them unique? Either Alicia or Lovis, would you like to touch base on what you think about that?
That's a great question. And I think I would say we look for that spark early on. I think our students come in with that spark. Our admissions team do a great job, you know, using, like, and I know we keep using this word holistic, but that's truly what it is, of selecting students who are resilient, who demonstrates grit, who has the compassion, who has the empathy, who has the drive, and they eventually become leaders with the tools and the things that we provide at Duke. They become leaders. So I won't say Duke sort of throws the spark. I think we just highlight it and we give you the sort of the path to continue. And I think that's why so many of Duke alums have blazed trails throughout the country and internationally in healthcare arenas. I don't know if someone else, I know Lovis was gonna unmute, but.
Well, Duke has been very fortunate to attract very good students. And I think that's one of the things that people ask me that. So what makes Duke a good program? I said, we are able to attract very good students. And we are able to, you can see two people on the panel here who are good students and that we were able to attract. And we didn't tell them to say these things, but I'm surprised at the things that they're saying. I'm learning those. So we had no input into what they were saying. So, but we are able to attract good students. And when you attract good students, we are not saying that the people who don't get in are not the good students, but we are fortunate enough to attract good students and they do very well when they leave. And we have some fabulous alumni.
Awesome.
Can I just add one thing, Samora? I totally echo our ability to, from the very start, identify people who have that spark. But I would say that one of the benefits to coming to a place like Duke for your PA education is just the amount of opportunities that there are, whether it be leadership opportunities, community service, getting involved in some of the organizations on campus, creating new organizations, getting involved in advocacy work. There are so many different opportunities that comes with coming to Duke. And sometimes students have to learn how to say like the strategic yes, and to say no to things because they get overwhelmed by the number of opportunities. So I do think that, when you're researching PA programs, look to see what does that program, what does that institution, what does that community have to offer you to mold you into an incredible PA? Because I would say a lot of curriculums look very similar from program to program. There's some tweaks and differences, but what are the other things that come along with that basic education? They're going to make you that compassionate, incredible PA that goes out and takes great care of patients.
Thank you, April. Wendy, there was a great question, and I know it comes up a lot in terms of how to address difficulties and specifically in essays, but there's an anonymous question. If my grit and tenacity comes from overcoming some mental health struggles, how would you recommend dealing with that? Should I avoid mentioning it completely in my essay?
We want to hear your story and we want to know what makes you you. And if you had a mental health issue that came up and you've dealt with it, that's totally on the table. I will say this, there is a caveat. If your entire application from page 1 to page 14, you mention that issue over and over again, and you kind of can't let it go, then we think there might still be some issue that you're dealing with that you're maybe not quite ready to go the PA route, to you haven't quite handled it. All the time when we're reading applications, two people could talk about the same thing. One person would hit it right on the money. They would address it, maybe say something they learned and go on. And then we have people who in their essay, they say, I had a mental health issue and this and this and this and this and this. And then we're like, okay, well, we'll interview them and get to know them more. And in every interview that they have, my mental health issue was this and this and this and this and this. It's too much. So there is a very happy medium about how to deal with things that have certainly shaped you, but that you have overcome, that you have had the grit and tenacity to overcome. The key is the overcoming or the working through. You may not even have overcome it, but the working through and the acknowledgement that it's part of who you are, but it's not only who you are.
I remember someone once told me that, those of us who go through struggles definitely can, relate to our patients better. So I would say it's not a crutch. It actually might be something that admissions are looking for, because there is something to be said about someone that's gone through struggles. So yes to everything you said. I'm going to bundle two questions together, and I'm going to throw this to Rhiannon and Lovis. It's It's the question by Akeem. And also, I lost the other one. But they were asking about the demographics of those who are interviewed and accepted at Duke. Is there anything in place to improve those numbers in favor of a more diverse class? And then I think someone may have answered the other one, but it was kind of speaking about how do you make sure that you have, oh, sorry, it's the one right above by Anonymous who says, what are some ways you all make sure that classes are diverse? Because this person is a little bit worried about applying to a bigger school. Lovis, would you want to answer first?
I didn't get the last question.
So I'll read it in its entirety. Can someone speak about the demographics of those who are interviewed and accepted at Duke? Is there anything in place to improve those numbers in favor of a more diverse class? Adding to that, another question, someone expressing their nervousness to apply to most big schools due to the lack of diversity, and what you all are doing to make sure that your classes are diverse. Kind of similar, but.
Well, we have a diverse faculty, and we have all those and staff, and we make a concerted effort that we try to go along with our matched admission, and we have a very diverse admissions committee, and we make sure that when candidates come up, that we discuss them in its entirety. And you would be surprised the dynamics of our admissions committee, but we don't take these, we take it very seriously. And our matched admission for acceptance of students. So that's one of the reasons why we are able to. Some years back, the admissions committee wasn't not that diverse. It wasn't diverse as it is now. And we have faculty who are diverse. We have alumni who are on the admissions committee, and staff. So we make sure that we go through every applicant in detail, and we always try to not forget our matched admission. That's one reason why we can keep it that way.
Anyone else in the faculty panel want to add to that? Pretty thorough answer, but.
Can I add just maybe a couple of points? There was a question about, what processes are in place. And I would say some of those processes start all the way at the beginning with recruitment, and a lot of the work that Lovis and the recruitment team does in terms of partnerships with HBCUs, health fairs, pre-PA clubs, just getting ourselves out there and being very strategic in who we choose to partner with, and really focus our recruitment efforts on disadvantaged and underrepresented in medicine applicants. And then Lovis really spoke to some of our diversity efforts within our own program, and diversity efforts in making sure that our admissions committee represents a very diverse perspective. It's not just faculty, and it's not just Duke PA alums. We also bring in other health professions, faculty, people from nursing or PT program, MD program. We bring our clinical preceptors in who tend to see a lot of our students. We have students on the committee. So we really have been working hard to make sure that the folks sitting around that decision-making table at any interview week are diverse. And then another thing that we've really have focused on in the last several years is taking a hard look at our admissions process itself, and a critical eye at opportunities to root out bias at every step of the way. A lot of those efforts have really been led by our program director, Dr. Burnett, who speaks a lot about equity and justice from top to bottom in our program, but particularly in admissions, because admissions is the gatekeeper to the profession. And so we have got to take a critical eye in terms of where bias creeps in at every step in that admissions process. And so every year we're tweaking things in our process to mitigate and address those things.
Thank you. Rhiannon, I have a couple of general admission questions, three, but I'll ask you them one by one. The first is, does an associate's degree after a bachelor's count as a post-bac?
The courses would count as far as they would be in your GPA via CASPA. And CASPA breaks down the GPA in a million different ways for us. So it's something we would look at either way, just the same as we would see, even if you just did one or two classes, we would see that. If you did a master's, we would see that. So it counts as far as your GPA goes.
Okay. Now, for those people that have taken the GRE multiple times, do you look at the most recent or do you average them? I do know some programs do that.
Send us the GRE grade scores that you want us to see. We definitely don't average them. We don't do the best verbal with the best quant. We're going to look at the most recent scores that we get from you. So if you are waiting, if you just took it a second time and you're waiting for your score to come back, hold off and give us the score you want us to have.
Okay. And then I think, oh, go ahead, Wendy.
But if you send us 2 and 3 different scores, we will look at your best one, but it has to be from one sitting.
And Wendy, while I have you, I think I know the answer. It was already answered, whether you guys allow for in-state versus a certain amount of in-state versus out-of-state, but someone already answered that. So did you want to add to that, Wendy, though?
I'm good.
So we're going to end soon. There were some questions asked for the PA students. Mariah, there was one that you wanted to answer live.
Hey, everybody. I want to make sure, can you guys hear me okay this time? I want to make sure I'm not breaking up again. Sorry about that before. Yeah, I wanted to answer the question about why I chose Duke. It is multifaceted, but I think some of the main things for me were my my interview experience, just talking to the faculty. Everyone there was very just kind, just very, very nice, very much. They just really showed that they care. And they really wanted to get to know me as a person. And I really felt that. And I can absolutely say that theme has trended, that continues as a student. I have had many challenges in PA school, as I mentioned before. Some things due to PA school, some things not. I cannot that I have friends here at the program, in the faculty, in my advisor, and I feel comfortable telling them, what's been going on with me and asking them for, just getting their support. And they are always, they're very responsive, very supportive. If there's any resources they can offer you, they will do that. Like, they will move heaven and earth for you if it's within their power to do so. So that panned out from what I experienced in my interview. And I think the other thing that I'll say is that, for me, it was, how do I say this? As someone who applied multiple times, to get into Duke was beyond a dream. Like, just never ever thought that would happen, ever. So it was just kind of a no-brainer for me, just knowing what I knew about the program, knowing about its history and its reputation, knowing that I'll get to have the Duke name, attached to me and my resume, and knowing that I'm getting, the best possible education here. It was an easy choice for me.
So yeah, why did you choose Duke?
Yeah, so I chose Duke. I think I alluded to this earlier, but I really applied last minute, like literally maybe like a day before everything closed out. That was me. I did that because I was really nervous about applying to Duke. So when I got the email for their interview, I was like, okay, all right. So yeah, I know you can talk a good game. So that was my whole thing, the whole application site. I was like, it's okay. They'll see my stats, but can I talk a good game? I was like, yeah, I can talk. Let's do this, right? And I remember at my interview, I remember when the faculty, they were all introducing themselves. And I remember, I think it was at the very end, Wendy actually told everyone, and she said, look, guys, it's okay. Whatever the outcome may be, you all will get into PA school somewhere. And I remember that to this day. I was like, she's right. We're going to get in. We're going to get in. It doesn't matter where. And so when I actually did get that email notification that I was accepted, it was just a monumental moment. And it was something that really, I cried. I think I was at work and I cried in front of the doctor. And I was like, I got in because, as I said, I applied late. So I had like almost every week denied. So you can imagine the morale that happens when all you see are denial statements or emails coming to you. And then all of a sudden someone wants to offer you an interview. And then all of a sudden now you're accepted while patiently waiting. And at this point, I think I was applying to more schools because I was like, no, we can't, we got to do this. We got to do this. So that was really going through my brain. And so when I received that email notification that I was accepted, I immediately called all my family members and I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And honestly, here's a fact. I did not know the ranking for the Duke PA program when I applied. So it was and this is serious, it was actually my employee who told me about it when I told them I was accepted. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I made it to where I didn't want to know much as far as like their ranking because I wanted to go in with an unbiased opinion, no matter what happens at any of the schools. And so that was something that was very monumental for me. And so I actually chose Duke just because the environment at the interview, it was amazing. The people who interviewed me, we actually had great conversations outside of the typical interview questions. It was really to the point where they were knocking on the door and like, hey, next person needs to come in. So it was really, really, really a great experience with that. And I just felt welcomed at the end of the day. I just felt welcomed. And so that is ultimately why I chose Duke. And I am really glad that I chose Duke because that has continued throughout to where I still feel welcomed. There has not been a moment where I felt as if I can't go to the faculty for anything, and I mean anything at all, and have them judge me. I've never felt judged. I've never felt like, why did you do? Never at all. I've never had that moment. So it's been an amazing ride. And I am honestly so grateful and so thankful that that has occurred in my life. It's very nice. Those are my 2 cents. That's why I chose to attend.
Those were 50 cents, but it was all great things. All right, so thank you guys all for reaching out. I hope this was informative to those watching. Let's end with a word of advice or encouragement or whatever it is that you'd like to share from each member of the panelists. And then we'll close by saying good night. Rhiannon.
Okay, mine would be something I wrote in the chat a minute ago, which is that we definitely have students who have only gotten in at Duke. So the holistic approach works in interesting ways sometimes and gets us a great class of students who might not be what every school is looking for, but are definitely what we're looking for.
That's Wendy.
When you're writing your essays, be you. Tell your story. Make us want to meet you.
That's April.
I answered this in a couple of questions, but I just want to reiterate that there are actually very few deal breakers in what we look at in applications. So if somebody's had, they've been on academic probation in their undergraduate, they've failed a class, they didn't do well on the GRE, whatever, I would just encourage you to weave that into your story and talk about what you learned, how you overcame, what did you do to try to rectify that situation? How was that a growing opportunity for you? And just apply. We want to see your application.
That's Alicia.
I just want to say, you are a PA. PAs are you. Don't feel that your background, your upbringing, anything get in a way that maybe you don't belong here. I'm a first in generation in my family to graduate from college. I'm from a low socioeconomic status. My parents were both addicted to drugs, and I am here at Duke as a faculty member. So don't allow your upbringing to deter you. We want you. Use your lemons to make lemonade. Show us who you are. And if you're not here at Duke, we want you in the PA profession somewhere. So thank you for this afternoon and this opportunity.
And Mr. Lovis. Oh, you're on mute. We want to hear from you.
You're on mute, Lovis.
I would say what I told a group last night. I was on Zoom last night to a university. And for those of you who are PAs and those of you inspiring to be PAs, once you finish, I am on the backs of those before me. You need to reach back in order to continually have diversity. Replace yourself. What I mean, replace yourself, and you need to replace yourself 2 or 3 times. So you need to reach back. Just because you get yours, you need to reach back and get somebody else and bring them forward. That's the only way that we're going to alleviate this stuff that we have going on in America right today as far as the disparities in health, because you have to replace yourself. You have to get back and you have to reach and get someone else who looks like you, who has some of your characters, your characteristics, and bring them forward too.
All right, Wendy, this one last question came in, and I think it's just as important as the mental health one, but spiritual life, is that okay to talk about? You're on mute, you're on mute.
Spiritual life is great to talk about. I mean, that is a big part of a lot of people's lives. Again, though, don't talk about it 100% of the time. Don't make your application all about it. We want to see your well-roundedness. It's a piece of your life and it's awesome to talk about, but make it one piece. Don't make it the whole thing.
Hey, on that note, I'll end with the last comment from Catherine, who's thanking all you guys for your transparency and encouragement. She's even more impressed with the program than she was to begin with. And I would say the same for me, even though I'm no longer applying. But yeah, thank you guys again. Thank you all for watching. Everyone has dropped their contact info if there's any questions, but I've heard nothing but great things about Duke. I know Duke PAs and the faculty seem amazing and supportive. So thank you all for attending and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.